In life, what we find most valuable to us is our families, especially our children. And when we have an incident like this, it sure does raise the temperature of our tempers. This is a scar that, may never heal.
New charges have been filed against a registered sex offender, and law enforcement is asking the public to come forward with any information. Sheriff Toby Shelley says on Sunday around 7 p.m., Pontello, who is a level 1 sex offender, allegedly lured a 5-year-old girl with candy from a playground on Bear Road into the woods and committed sex crimes. He is charged with rape, sexual abuse, luring a child, and endangering the welfare of a child. The sheriff's office says Pontello is also the suspect in a sex crime committed against a 3-year-old earlier this spring. Pontello is on the sex offender registry from an incident in 2011 in Oswego County, but Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick is concerned there may be other victims.
The likelihood of someone with those proclivities remaining dormant for a decade is extremely unlikely. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into his background, his location, see what evidence we get from his social media, from his phone.
Onondaga County investigators are asking for the public's help.
He lured that 5-year-old girl.
Ryan Pontello now stands accused of sex crimes against a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old girl. Investigators worry there are others, in part because they know of at least one other victim in his past. State police arrested Pontello in 2013 in the town of Palermo in Oswego County. Officers charging him then with felony sexual abuse in the first degree. You could find that out if you found this report on CNYCentral.com from 12 years ago. Anything more, including the resolution of the case, takes digging. The I-team went to Palermo. There, we uncovered court records showing police charged Pontello for sexually touching a 5-year-old girl while she was sleeping in her bedroom in 2011. Pontello was 19, living in Phoenix at the time. Felonies are handled in county court, but this case never left the town courtroom, meaning a plea deal reduced this charge to a misdemeanor. He was then registered as a level 1 sex offender. It's the lowest level, meant to signify low risk of reoffending, meaning he doesn't show up when you type his name into the state sex offender registry. It's only by calling that you can find out info about someone with level 1 status.
Hi, my name is Connor White.
Even then, you need personal information like an exact address or even a social security number. We got our hands on his date of birth, and from there learned he was convicted on misdemeanor sexual abuse in the 2nd degree in August of 2013. A 5-year-old victim, the same age as the girl police now say he assaulted in the woods near a playground Sunday.
All the victims will be forever affected by this monster's behavior.
Francis Coots is a retired commander with state police. He says it's possible that this case leads to a change in how sex offender registration and information is handled.
His previous crimes were protected by privacy laws. And unfortunately, is that a child had to suffer because of it.
How many more children does he need to traumatize for the rest of their lives before something more is done and he's not just let out with a slap on the wrist?
For parents like Ashley Campfield, who has 3 children of her own, the emotions run deep: frustration, fear, and protection.
Parents should be able to let their kids play at the park. It's just an unfortunate world we live in that we really have to watch our kids with those hawk eyes to make sure that there's no, creepers leering about.
Those we spoke to say one thing gives them hope: the courage of the young girl who spoke up.
She is so strong and so brave and so courageous for coming forward and telling her friends, because not many a lot of grown women wouldn't do that.
Ryan Pontello's name and face are now everywhere, charged for luring a 5-year-old girl into the woods on Sunday and sexually assaulting her. He's also facing charges for sex crimes against a 3-year-old girl from this spring. The I-team found that in 2013, he was convicted on a misdemeanor charge for inappropriately touching another 5-year-old in the town of Palermo.
The likelihood of someone with those proclivities remaining dormant for a decade is extremely unlikely.
The concern for investigators is he has other victims. He's registered as a level 1 sex offender. That means his name doesn't appear if you search the state's registry. Instead, you need to call and provide personal information to learn anything about him from the registry. This is the kind of document the town of Palermo court would have used to assign Pontello with level 1 status in 2013. It's a point system based on factors such as use of violence, number of victims, or prior convictions. If the total remains below 70, the offender is level 1. Level 2 and Level 3 are considered higher risks to reoffend. Information, including photos, for those kinds of offenders is readily available on the registry website. Some are frustrated to learn Pontello's status all but keeps his past hidden.
As just another citizen, I want something to be done. As just another citizen, I think this is unacceptable, and it is unacceptable.
David Prescott is a leader with the Safer Society Foundation, which works to end sexual violence. He says stricter supervision through tools like extended probation may have stopped Pontello. But he says the sex offender registry alone is not a silver bullet, even if Pontello had a higher level.
I can't find any evidence that it's a deterrent, unfortunately, and I also am aware of limited evidence at best that it actually prevents sex crimes.
Right now, there's legislation in committee in the state Senate that would reevaluate the variables used to assess how dangerous a sex offender is, in part because this assessment tool is now 30 years old.
If it hasn't been updated since the 1990s, this horrific crime could be a good impetus to update it.
In a letter to families, the YMCA of Central New York said, quote, "We recently learned the individual involved was a member of our Y. We immediately and permanently terminated their membership." The Y says they use a system that scans members against the National Sex Offender Registry daily, but Ryan Pontello, a level 1 offender, was never flagged. Carrie Dam is the former executive director of the Child Advocacy Center of Oswego County and believes there are flaws in the sex offender system.
It's always been an issue for me that that the community isn't more aware of who around them is really posing a risk. Yes, you can try to look things up, but if something seems amiss, it's okay to put a boundary in place.
The YMCA wrote, quote, "The painful reality is that we must always remain vigilant. Many individuals who seek to cause harm may have no prior record. The news of Pontello's arrest has left many frustrated at the sex offender system."
Just disgusting. It's very sad. It's just so bothersome to hear about, things happening to children. So unnecessary. There's so many sick people out there these days. There's really got to be some things more done.
Letting someone in with that type of, sexual offender history, background is a little dangerous.
So there are a lot of children, that could be at risk of, if they're left alone, they kind of wander behind a group, they wander off.
The Y listed several child safety protocols, including staff training, check-in procedures, and emergency drills. But many say it's not enough.
As much as I want to rely on the system, I also just want to tell parents, just keep your eyes and ears around you, your wits about you, and keep your eyes and ears open.
Ryan Pontello faces charges for raping a 5-year-old girl in the woods last Sunday in North Syracuse. Officers say he also sexually abused a 3-year-old in the spring.
Majority of the time, 90% of the victims know their abuser. This case falls into 10%, right, where it's an unknown individual.
Erin Bates, director of the McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center, says this case has rocked the community. In her nearly 12 years of advocacy, she says it's one of the first times she's seen a tangible problem with how the sex offender registry works. Pontello is a level 1 offender. The I-Team learning that came after a plea deal in 2013 where felony sex abuse charges were reduced to misdemeanors. As a level 1, his photo, address, and information on his crimes are not online like more serious level 2 and level 3 offenders.
It's always important to be aware of what's around you, right? And that's the original purpose of this sex offender registry. And the unfortunate piece of that is that it's only level 2 and level 3 that you're seeing on that.
Bates says it's time to re-examine that system.
I personally feel that they should all have the same requirements. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find an advocate or a victim serving agency that wouldn't feel that way.
The original thinking for keeping the information for level 1 offenders private is that they're meant to be at the lowest risk of reoffending. The I-Team finding this week that the tool to make that determination is now 30 years old. We brought questions to a number of Central New York lawmakers in Albany. Ranking Democrat Pam Hunter out of Syracuse saying in part, this system is supposed to protect the public, especially our most vulnerable, and right now it's falling short. Republican Minority Leader Will Barclay agreeing.
As I said, it's really government's job to keep its citizens safe, and so we don't want something like this ever to happen again. So whether it's working with Pam Hunter or anyone else, I'm willing to work in a bipartisan manner to try to get a solution so this doesn't happen again.
The sex offender registry laws in the state of New York have remained pretty much unchanged since they were introduced back in the 90s. The severity of these recent crimes mean that those lawmakers in Albany are now taking another look. Nearly 12 years before officers say Ryan Pontello sexually abused a 5-year-old and 3-year-old in separate incidents here in Onondaga County, the I-Team found he abused a young girl in Oswego County. A court required him to register as a level 1 sex offender, meaning he was meant to have a low risk of reoffending. It also means his info wasn't readily available online to neighbors. Syracuse Assemblywoman Pam Hunter, a high-ranking Democrat in Albany, says these children were failed in the worst possible way.
I spoke to Pam this morning.
Hunter's influence now rapidly spreading to a growing bipartisan group of Central New York lawmakers in Albany.
If we need to change something to prevent this from ever happening again, then I'm going to do that. We are going to do that for sure.
Longtime State Senator Liz Krueger of Manhattan says it's about time her colleagues take a look at this.
We need good policy and we need updated policy.
Senator Krueger says she's been fighting to update the risk assessment tool that hasn't changed in 30 years. Assemblywoman Hunter is now co-sponsoring the bill to change the tool after we brought our reporting to her office.
Prior to this, whether it was in the Senate or the Assembly, you didn't have a co-sponsor, correct?
Correct. And I have been carrying the bill for quite a few years. And so again, I am hoping that many legislators and others will take a look.
The New York City Bar Association also advocating for changing the assessment tool. It also wants a committee to explore the registry's functions.
This would be sort of a refresher.
Nicole Giuglis, speaking for herself as an expert with the City Bar Association, says it's important to keep in mind that there's little evidence to say the registry helps prevent people from reoffending, noting that the vast majority of sex abuse victims already know their attacker, and that attacker is almost always unknown to law enforcement.
The data has pretty much uniformly shown that the registration apparatus is not effective at deterring or eliminating sexual misconduct.
Neighbors say the system failed, and they are shocked that a man who made these admissions was still labeled as low risk, saying that this puts their children in danger.
After Ryan Pontello admitted to police in 2011 that he was attracted to young girls, he was still labeled a low-risk sex offender. Now, years later, he's accused of raping a 5-year-old girl.
I think it fails a lot of the times, and I think that there needs to be more punishment and a higher level of punishment for even the simplest of offenses, because more than often it happens again, and then we're left with another child who's damaged for the rest of their life.
Jennifer Hillerin has a young daughter of her own. She says the system feels like it's stacked against parents.
I've read things online how they blame the parents, and it's like we do all we can to try to protect our children, and then when we don't have help from the system and it keeps falling through the cracks, what more can we do?
Pontello admitted his urges in a police statement, yet was still considered low risk. Neighbors say the system is broken.
It get lost in the system, just like a lot of other things get lost in the system, but it shouldn't.
Patterson has a 5-year-old granddaughter, the same age as the victim.
And when you hear something like that, it just like, it gets you right here, and then you just think about how can anybody that admits that they have a problem like that can still be out on the streets.
Others say it's hard to stay informed when the system hides much of the information about level 1 offenders, like Pontello.
It's surprising, especially from his family. You don't know what to think.
In the eyes of the law, 19-year-old Ryan Pontello posed a low risk of sexually abusing another child after a plea deal led him to be convicted of misdemeanor sexual abuse in Palermo, Oswego County. On its face, a startling revelation, given Pontello himself told state police he was aroused by young girls. On March 5th, 2013, state police arrest Pontello for inappropriately touching a 5-year-old girl in the town of Palermo. The I-Team is uncovering new documents showing his first statements to investigators were lies, denying any crime. An hour and 20 minutes later, Pontello comes clean. He says that one night he rubbed the young girl's bare skin while she slept, rubbing her legs, her chest, and her stomach. Then, in statements rarely seen in court records, Pontello tells investigators, quote, "I knew what I was doing was wrong. I am aroused by young girls. And finally, I need help for my problem." Troopers charge Pontello with felony sexual abuse. Records tracking the case show the Oswego County District Attorney's Office offers a plea deal to a misdemeanor sexual abuse charge. Pontello takes the deal. He is sentenced to 60 days in jail and 6 years probation.
These are, the quintessential innocent victims.
Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick is prosecuting Pontello on new charges. Investigators in Onondaga County now charging him with raping a 5-year-old girl this month and abusing a 3-year-old earlier this spring. Pontello's status as a level 1 offender after telling police he was aroused by children comes as a shock to Fitzpatrick. So with what he told investigators, how does he come out of that as level 1?
I don't think it takes a Herculean leap of logic to figure out if the guy's enjoying it, he's going to do it again. And that's your worst nightmare. So again, Connor, I don't know why the case was reduced.
Just like every other sex offender case, a 30-year-old tool was used to assess Pontello's risk level using a point system. Based on the severity of the crime, points are assigned. We found Pontello appeared to have remained at level 1 in part because he accepted responsibility based on the assessment tool.
It's not like, wow, this is a mystery. Is this guy going to reoffend? That's the guy telling you he's going to reoffend.
March 2013, state police arrest Ryan Pontello in the town of Palermo. They charge him with felony sex abuse for touching a young girl's private parts over her clothing. He takes a plea deal that reduces that charge to a misdemeanor, and the process begins to designate his sex offender registry level. Documents obtained by the I-Team show prosecutors followed the objective numbers on a risk assessment tool created in 1995. He got low scores like 0s for, quote, acceptance of responsibility, or a 5 for sexual contact remaining over the clothes, a relatively high score of 30 for the victim being younger than 10. It all adds up to 65, keeping him at level 1, 10 points shy of the level 2 status that would have placed his name, photo, address, and details of his past crimes on the state's public registry. What those numbers fail to address is a startling admission the I-Team found in these 12-year-old court documents in Palermo. Pontello himself telling investigators, quote, "I have a problem that I am attracted to young girls." He tells them, quote, "I need help."
When a guy says, "I need help," that's screaming, hey, I'm going to reoffend again.
Rick Trunfio spent decades prosecuting sex crimes in Onondaga County. He says Pontello's words should have played a role in his sex offender level. He explains that beyond this risk assessment sheet, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and judges can request a departure based on factors just like this.
A judge can deviate from the numerical value with additional information.
Buried in these documents, another red flag. A woman living with Pontello at the time says she found internet searches for pornographic images of young children on his PlayStation 3. Pontello even told investigators himself he searched for, quote, naked girls age 11 and up.
If the two facts that we talked about weren't considered, that's a problem.
Trunfio stresses he doesn't know enough about the case to assign blame. Defense lawyer and former prosecutor Brian DeCarlos says the same. But he notes the point of the departure system is to try to overcome shortfalls in the registration tool's rigid numbers.
The ability to ask for the departure insulates any inherent, unfairness or misrepresentation, in my opinion, of the instrument.
For more than a week, we've told you about Ryan Pontello's initial arrest for sexual abuse. We reported she was 5 years old when Pontello was arrested.
It turns out the abuse began when the girl was just 3.5. I talked with the now 17-year-old high school senior along with her parents. They've lived out of state for many years, but when the news broke about the arrest of Ryan Pontello, her parents knew they needed to tell their daughter. We promised to keep her identity concealed. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. About a week ago, this became a news story with Ryan Pontello. How did you hear about it, and what were your thoughts and feelings when you did?
They showed me actually the conference video, the press conference. And I just broke down because I remember what he did to me and what happened, and just knowing that he did it to other girls, I wasn't okay. I was crying. And
the name Ryan Pontello did not stand out at first because the girl and her family knew him by his nickname, Goofy. He used to babysit. Pontello admitted to touching the girl through her clothes. She said the abuse went much further, beginning when she was 3.5 until the age of 5. You said that this had happened repeatedly for a year and a half, roughly.
Yeah.
Is that? You described that. Tell me about that.
He would come in my room when I was asleep and wake me up when my parents were asleep. And it was happening for months. I knew it wasn't a one-time thing. And my parents trusted him. I trusted him. And then one night he just came in my room and touched me. And I didn't understand. You know, it didn't start off right away with him under my clothes, but you know, rubbing my belly and touching my legs. But it progressively got to him pulling out his genitals.
She says for years she blocked memories of what Pontello did to her. But during adolescence, she recalled details of the acts he committed and confided in her mother. Why did you want to tell your story today? Why is it important?
It's important to me because I don't want those little girls to know. I want those little girls to know that they're not alone. And I want the counties, Oswego, and all them to know that I'm not okay, and what they did to me was not okay. I want them to know that they were wrong, and that they could have stopped this, and those little girls, that all this could have been avoided if they just listened to me and, you know, gave me the justice that I deserved.
Now, she told me for years she didn't want to be near a man. She did not know exactly why, but she knew something was wrong. She recently enjoyed her junior prom. She's heading into her senior year of high school with outstanding grades, already stockpiling college credits for her next step in life, and we certainly wish her well. So brave for sharing her story.
I mean, I think that it really just goes without saying she is remarkably brave to come forward to share this. It's a long time ago for her. Clearly, it's carried on through all these years.
And her parents were right with her when I was speaking with her, and we talked with her mom a little bit too. Maybe we'll bring you some of that later on too, but really remarkable to hear that firsthand.
Yeah, trying to prevent other kids from this happening to them.
Wednesday night, Onondaga County Sheriff's deputies lodged new charges against 33-year-old Ryan Pontello, this time identifying a third recent victim of the Level 1 registered sex offender. He's already behind bars on charges for raping a 5-year-old girl and sexually abusing a 3-year-old. As the investigation continued, Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick anticipated there could be other victims.
We have had some, I don't want to call it success because it's unfortunate.
Earlier this week, the DA indicating they were getting close to bringing forward new charges after finding child pornography on Pontello's phone. Thursday morning, investigators confirming they were able to identify the child in the videos. In court filings, a detective says Pontello touched the private parts of a 3-year-old at a Syracuse home this January. The felony complaint states he knew the child, producing 5 videos and storing them on his Samsung Galaxy smartphone. In last week's case near the Windsor Apartments on Bear Road, investigators say Pontello did not know the 5-year-old girl he's accused of luring off a playground and into the woods with candy. That's where they say he abused and raped her. He now faces 19 additional charges, including multiple counts of sexual abuse in the first degree, promoting a sexual performance by a child, and endangering the welfare of a child.
I would anticipate that our position is going to be that Mr. Pontello essentially spend the rest of his life in prison.
These are the most recent crimes that police know of since Pontello's first arrest in Oswego County in 2013. The I-Team revealing that state police charged Pontello then with felony sexual abuse charges for touching a young girl who he was babysitting. Under a plea deal, he was convicted of a misdemeanor and sentenced to 60 days in jail and 6 years probation. The court had Pontello register as a level 1 sex offender deemed the least likely to reoffend. As a level 1, it's difficult for the public to find Pontello's name, photo, criminal past, and home address, unlike level 2 and 3 offenders who are deemed more serious.
We're going to be looking to ensure that he's not a level 1, not a level 2, not a level 3, but a level goodbye.
Convicted for touching a young girl while she slept in the town of Palermo, Ryan Pontello was registered as a level 1 sex offender in 2013. The Oswego County District Attorney's Office recommending that status based on a 30-year-old document. The judge signed off on it, designating Pontello in the eyes of the law as the least likely to reoffend and making his name, photo, address, and past crimes all but invisible to the public. That determination made despite Pontello telling investigators, quote, "I have a problem that I am attracted to young girls," going on to say, "I need help."
I don't think that a cry out for help comes in a purer form than this.
David Prescott is a leader with the Safer Societies Foundation, dedicating his life to researching how to stop sexual violence. He says through therapy and other treatment, studies show it is possible to ensure people sexually attracted to children can function in society without ever harming someone.
We're probably not going to make that interest go away, but we can help people manage their behavior.
Rick Trunfio, a former prosecutor with the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office, says that office would always fight to include treatment as a probation requirement for sex offenders.
The judge absolutely gets to say, you will have to go to sex offender treatment. You will have to go to some therapy.
In this case, Palermo Town Judge Robert Wood is declining to go on the record. The documents provided by the court don't show release or probation conditions. What we do know is the judge sentenced him to 60 days in jail and 6 years probation. Pontello also got the lowest possible designation on the sex offender registry.
On its own, simply punishing people doesn't make them less dangerous.
Oswego County District Attorney Anthony DiMartino first learned Ryan Pontello's name when Onondaga County DA Bill Fitzpatrick's team reached out in June.
The incident that the sheriff alluded to occurred in Oswego County.
DiMartino's office got involved because Pontello's first known sex crime happened in 2011 in the town of Palermo. DiMartino was not DA at the time. The I-Team uncovering documents showing state troopers first arrested him on a felony charge for sexually abusing a young girl. But the case ended in a plea deal. Pontello was convicted of a misdemeanor, even after we found that he told investigators, quote, "I have a problem that I am attracted to young girls," admitting, quote, "I need help for my problem."
That's something that you need to take at heart and pursue a prosecution based on that.
Acknowledging he now has the benefit of hindsight, DiMartino says his office has a strategy when it comes to handling sex offenses going forward. It puts more eyes and hands on each case, and he believes it would have ensured Pontello faced the stronger felony charge, especially given his alarming confession.
Those are the things that we think about because you don't want that case to haunt you in the future, and apparently, unfortunately, it is a haunting at this point.
DiMartino says he's perplexed by what came next. The town judge sentenced Pontello to 60 days in jail and 6 years probation in August of 2013. But a hearing to determine Pontello's sex offender status doesn't happen until August 2016, 3 years later.
How does someone realize, hey, we never gave this guy a rating?
In that case, I have no idea. I honestly can't tell you. It should have occurred, subsequent to sentencing. It should have been before he was released from jail.
The ADA on the case recommended level 1 status, signaling a low risk of reoffending. The town judge agreed. Level 2 and level 3 offenders are easily found on the state's online registry, their photos, addresses, and even past crimes all public. But for 9 years, Pontello's level 1 sex offender status was basically a secret.
Are there other cases that you are directing someone to go back through to make sure that there isn't a similar missed opportunity to hold someone to account?
We were concerned about some cases that went down to lower courts.
DiMartino asked the state for help reviewing sex offender convictions in town and village courts across Oswego County going back more than 10 years. He says they found just one instance where a convicted sex offender did not get a registration hearing, and they are now correcting it. In Oswego, I'm Connor White.
Craig Oakes was district attorney at the time of Pontello's case in Palermo in 2013. So far, he's declining to comment, citing his current role with the state attorney general's office. The town judge is also offering no comment.
Yeah, Gary, tonight Assemblywoman Hunter says she hopes her role in the Assembly Speaker's leadership team and relentless advocacy will get this bill to the finish line. She says times have changed since that risk assessment tool was first created, and so have the tactics these predators use to prey on kids. High-ranking Democrat Assemblymember Pam Hunter is following the I-Team's investigation into Ryan Pontello, a child predator who somehow got the lowest level and most protective sex offender ranking.
It shouldn't take a horrific case for something to be able to move forward, but the time is now.
For years now, a proposed bill to change the risk assessment criteria for sex offenders has been sitting in a committee, totally stalled. But Hunter says it's now imperative that the factors considered when determining a sex offender's ranking are updated.
Great tool, probably 30 years ago, but was missing many, many things. And it's apparent now many of those things that are missed were probably not even thought of back then. Trolling people on the internet 30 years ago, cyber information, taking things into account like substance abuse. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration now.
On July 16th, Hunter introduced the bill, now referred to the Committee on Correction. It's the same as Senator Liz Krueger's on that side of the legislature. It would require a few things. One, a review every 5 years of the risk assessment tool. The one used now was created in 1995. 2, establish a database for tracking sex offender data in the state. That information would go into a detailed report to the governor and legislature evaluating the tool and recommending any possible changes needed. A task force of stakeholders would be created also, in charge of fine-tuning a risk assessment strategy.
They'll have a mental health person, a prosecutor, an advocate group, people who are experts in this area to look at the current tool and make recommendations on what has been used across the country in order to make communities safer.
Her hope is to keep kids from trauma so many, including Ryan Pontello's victims, have allegedly experienced.
The district attorney, law enforcement needs to have the tools at their ready, in their hands, to know this person, based on these tools available, are now considered the highest offender.
Working in the Special Victims Unit, detectives interact with some of the community's most vulnerable at a time when they need it most. Onondaga County Sheriff's SVU detective Tanya Wickline is a mom and does this work each day.
It is truly satisfying when you know that you can actually put an individual away that has done something so horrific to a child.
When it comes to preying on young children, some predators are allowed to fly under the radar. The state's sex offender registry only makes the name, location, and criminal past available online for level 2 and 3 sex offenders. The level 1s aren't searchable. The risk assessment tool that determines what level risk they are to the community is 30 years old.
Even if someone's a level 1, there's still a likelihood, right? Even if the board determines it to be lower than a level 3, there's still a likelihood that they're going to reoffend, and I think that the public deserves to have that knowledge.
It's time to make this positive change. Let's use some common sense to protect our kids.
In June, Onondaga County Sheriff Toby Shelley's office arrested Ryan Pontello, a level 1 sex offender. The I-Team found the registration came from his first known sex crime in 2011 in the town of Palermo in Oswego County. A conviction pleaded down to a misdemeanor after he touched a young girl over her clothes while she slept, even though he told authorities he was attracted to young girls. Now he's accused of luring a child off of a playground in clay with candy, then taking her into a wooded area and raping her.
Our emotions were up when this happened, and that emotion has not dissipated at all.
Days later, the sheriff couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to push for change. So he wrote this letter to the leaders of the Senate and Assembly, as well as Governor Kathy Hochul. In it, he said, quote, "The Pontello case demonstrates with tragic clarity that this classification does not guarantee safety. Shelley is calling for the state's sex offender registry law to mandate making level 1 offender information public too, asserting the belief that if Pontello's criminal history and sex offender status was public, the June case and trauma could have been prevented."
Not knowing potentially is what led us to where we are today with the victims we have. Protecting our youth is a priority, obviously. And I think if you can find something we can do better, we should pursue that. And I think in this instance, which was definitely brought to light with the Pontello case, we could have done more. You know, the public should have access to Pontello's information.
The I-Team taking these concerns straight to the governor and the Senate Majority Leader as they toured the state fairgrounds.
The sheriff succeeded in getting it to my attention, and it'll be part of our conversations.
Have you reviewed that letter? And after that, what are your thoughts on making that information public?
Well, public safety is my number one priority, and the circumstances that arose in the case that the sheriff referenced, you know, are horrific. You know, a level 1 sex offender picked up for, you know, doing it again. And this is a great concern to me as a mom, too, since he was targeting young girls.
Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins says safety is number one.
Hopefully predators know that New York is not the place where they can get away with it.
What is your thought on changing that law to amend that part?
Well, I think that, you know, obviously we're always responsive. When things happen, we try and make sure that the legislation fits what we need to do. And if there are other things, if the sheriff and others are concerned about it, we're always happy to revisit and take a look and see what we should do. We have the capacity here to be able to get to the right answer for New Yorkers, and I'm committed to work to do that.
This comes as Syracuse Assemblymember Pam Hunter is pushing legislation to update the criteria on the risk assessment tool used to determine what level a sex offender should be. 2 new cases against the already registered level 1 sex offender Ryan Pontello. 3 victims, all under the age of 5. At least one was still in diapers. Onondaga County Sheriff Toby Shelley worries there are still more victims out there.
He was seeking nude photos of a person 3-4 years old.
Court papers obtained by the I-Team show Pontello allegedly asked the aunt of a young girl to take nude photos and videos of her over Facebook Messenger in February of this year. 3 years before that, detectives say 2 other victims were abused by Pontello. Documents allege he performed sex acts on a 3- and 4-year-old in the summer of 2022. Records show investigators found videos of the encounters with both of them on his cell phone. All this coming to light during their deep dive into his past following his June arrest for allegedly raping a 5-year-old girl in North Syracuse in a wooded area near a playground. Sheriff Shelley penned a letter to Governor Hochul and other elected leaders asking to change the sex offender registry law. He wants level 1 offender information to be public. Right now it's not, which means Pontello was flying under the radar.
Yeah, we got to get after these people. Changing that sex registry will get this person's name and picture out and make people aware that this type of predators in their neighborhood.
Syracuse area and ranking Assemblywoman Pam Hunter is pushing to get the risk assessment tool for sex offenders an update.
This is disgusting, and it just cements that we have a pervasive child predator problem.
She's reintroduced a long dormant bill that would allow a judge to factor technology and social media in when determining between levels 1, 2, or 3, methods Pontello is accused of using to carry out abuse. Detectives were looking into Facebook messaging and phone records to see photos.
This is exactly why we need to update this assessment tool, because when this was first created, there was not cyber stalking. There was not Facebook. There were not instances where people could troll young people, hide people on the dark web. This is what's happening right now in this current one-page tool is not adequate to really target and tackle new age predators.
Ryan Pontello's name is constantly on the mind of Lieutenant Marcus Rinaldi. Onondaga Sheriff's deputies arrested him in North Syracuse in June for allegedly raping a young girl. Since then, he and other investigators have been looking through evidence and finding new victims.
In my 11 years, it's probably one of the worst things I've seen.
Pontello is a registered level 1 sex offender. The I-Team found the registration came from his first known sex crime in 2011 in the town of Palermo in Oswego County. A conviction pleaded down to a misdemeanor after he touched a young girl over her clothes while she slept. This despite telling authorities he was attracted to young girls.
It's frustrating just knowing we've identified this issue, tried to address it, and obviously law enforcement, we're on one side of it, courts, corrections, a different side of it, and then when you see it continue to persist, it can be frustrating.
Last week, the I-Team uncovering 2 new cases and 3 more victims of alleged abuse by Pontello. Lieutenant Rinaldi says he knew them beforehand.
Technology in this case was a big part of it, allowing us to identify different victims and then reaching out to them and trying to obviously put together new cases.
Is there more that you expect to come out as this investigation continues?
I hope not. I mean, this is a frustrating case for everybody. Having worked in that world, it's tragic. You have families that are being destroyed by this. They don't want to have to deal with this, and detectives have to go tell families that, you know, there might be another victim. So it's horrible. I hope there's no more, but we're still investigating. There's further stuff to go through.
Lieutenant Rinaldi says the sheriff's office wants to hear from anyone who feels they are a victim too. That way, investigators can add to their growing case file on Pontello and connect people to resources and counseling.
We have a holistic approach where we try to work with people on all those different categories and different levels. So it's basically to the families. If you see something, tell somebody. If your kid says something, share it.
Following some breaking news tonight, the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office has indicted level 1 sex offender Ryan Pontello on 48 counts of sex crimes against children. Prosecutors say the charges include rape, sexual abuse, and the production and possession of child sexual abuse materials. Investigators now say 6 children, ages 3, 4, and 5, are the alleged victims in crimes going back to 2022. This case first came to light last June when authorities say Pontello lured a 5-year-old girl from a playground using candy. Tonight, the Onondaga County Sheriff is speaking out about how the investigation developed and why he's renewing his call to change New York's sex offender registry law. Gary Robinson Jr. reports.
Sheriff Toby Shelley says this investigation grew through months of investigative work, calling it one of the most disturbing cases he has seen. Less than a year ago, detectives first encountered Ryan Pontello. Now the case includes 6 alleged child victims. Sheriff Toby Shelley says additional victims were identified through what he called outstanding investigative work by his office.
Outstanding investigative work by Captain Welch and his people brought those other victims forward. And, you know, we first ran into Ryan Pontello back in June 8th, I think. And look where we are now. Not even a year later, we have 5 more victims.
Shelley says while they are not actively seeking additional victims at this time, detectives are always reviewing new information. He says this is the most alleged victims he has seen in a single case for a suspected sex offender. The sheriff also used this moment to renew his call for changes to New York sex offender registry.
This Pontello guy really raises the temperature of your temper with what he did to our youth. So we sent a letter to the governor's office. We sent letters to our local assemblymen, senators. We also sent those letters to the leadership in Albany to get those people identified in our communities, you know, with their picture and their address and something like that, so you know who is around your children.
Pontello was designated a level 1 sex offender, meaning his photo and address were not readily available to the public.
This deviant sexual drive is hard to, or maybe impossible to get out of these people. We can't emphasize enough, we have to protect our children, and that's why we have to modify this law so you know who's around your neighborhood.
Shelley says progress in Albany has been slow, but the issue is on lawmakers' radar. He says his office will continue pushing for change, saying protecting children must come first. Sheriff Shelley says his message to the community is simple. Trust investigators, stay alert, and watch who your children are around.